Waiting for you, boss.
There's no dress code condition.
I figured that.
I wore pants because of him.
As long as your shirt looks good.
That's
doesn't
right.
matter.
I'm representing.
I'll put it down here, and if you need me to pass them back out, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 4 o'clock. Can we do that? Oh, wait a second.
Hey, Jake, are y'all ready at the back?
Now we make it official? Okay. Call the meeting to order. Is there anybody here that want to speak? Or do we have any emails in, any questions for the meeting today?
No one has signed up to speak. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to make a public comment? Okay.
Okay.
No one?
I think everybody received the minutes of the meeting of last week, last month, whenever it was. I need a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Then we'll go right into the agenda. I'd like to offer an opinion first, and then offers to have each person offer an opinion if they wanted to have an opinion. So let me just, I've met and talked to a lot of the council people and the mayor since our last meeting, and what we're doing here today will not affect any of the residents. It only affects the council people running for re-election. And we have 3 council people who have run for re-election or been part of the city government. So that's what this is really affecting, their ability to lose residents to vote for them or gain residents to vote for them. So I'm hoping we can come to a conclusion with our consultants that will show us the different ways of making it equality, because we have a law that we must adhere to make this a good election coming up in, when is the next election? May of 2024. So Ms. Watley, Kamali, Mr. Jacobson, and Ms. McCutcheon are the ones that are really going to be affected by this redistricting. But it's going to happen again when we have another census. So continue to do this. So I'm hoping we can come up to recommend something to our city council for them to vote on. And that's our job, is really to make a decision and then take it to city council. And that's my opinion, my opening opinion. If anybody else has any opinions, I open it up to them. Mr. Consultant, it's up to you.
Good afternoon. I think, we are in a position to make whatever changes you want to make whatever changes you want to explore and see what works and what doesn't. And we can put up, I think you have the Plan A, which is the one we had suggested. There were some other suggestions. We ran something which didn't work, although perhaps it can be adjusted. Or we can start with the districts as they are now and not with the Plan A that we had suggested. But if anybody has changes they want to make, we can put them up. You can see exactly what the impact is.
I have some suggestions. This is Jim Leverman. Looking at the 2 areas, I think that we have, the 2 districts that we have the most differences are 1 and 2, right?
I beg your pardon?
The differences that we have the largest deviation. is
Yeah.
1 and 2, districts 1 and 2.
Right, when
Right.
the plan that was suggested, we had like a 17%, I think it was, deviation, by moving things between, I think it was 1 and 4? To make 59 the border. And I don't think that works because, certainly not for the entire city, because more than half the city is above,
Right.
either above or below 59, I forget which way the population.
So I'm just
some
wondering,
of
as
them
an
have to go
outcome in
across.
terms of some calculations, if we moved precinct 4080 from District 2 to District 1, what that would look like, and also a suggestion looking at precinct 4121, moving it from 1 to 3, just to see what the numbers would look like. It was hard for me to pull all the numbers together and doing my
Sure.
homework in terms of
If we can.
isolating some of the population.
Yeah, we
just to-
can, Sherry did you understand what needed to do?
And part of the reason for that is looking at one of the major boundaries that we have is 59.
Sure.
And so you look at one that's, part of it's on the, I mean, a small part, but part of it's on the south side of 59, right, into 3, if you're following me. That's hard to see, yeah. Right here.
You're talking about that area right around Lexington Boulevard? Is that?
That one piece that's on the south side of 59.
Yeah.
May I make a quick suggestion / request? I don't want to preempt your thought here. Could we take a couple of minutes just to orient everybody to the maps that we have printed so that we are all clear on what we're looking at here? I think that might make it easier for me to look at specifics on what we might be changing.
It's going to be easier for me to come walk up around you to make sure I understand. So, what did you?
I think this is which council members are assigned to which district,
Oh,
looks like to
okay.
me.
Right.
Yeah, Sherry, can
Right.
you put the council member's address is on?
That's this one.
Mr. Chair, clarification, I don't know, do I have to press something?
The green
I'm good.
button.
The green button.
Red
Okay.
button, excuse me.
Just to clarify, is it 4121 that you are recommending or 3121?
4121, I believe.
Okay.
So I just want to see how that comes out in terms of the deviation and how close we can come is one of the scenarios. So I don't want to forget that. I mean, we can go through and look at the maps and look at the rest of what's been handed out, but I want to make sure we don't lose my thought
Okay,
anyway
was
in
it
terms of what I'm thinking.
3121 you wanted to move?
Hold on 1 second. We got a question here.
It's 40, moving 4080 from District 2 to District 1. Yes. And moving precinct 4121 from 1 to 3. Okay.
Hey,
And
Mitch,
just looking at the outcome as a result, we'll just rerun the numbers and see how that
we got a
looks.
question for you,
I
Jim.
got a question, though. If you're, maybe, like, to your point, I think it might be good to get our bearings straight on which maps we're looking at. But if I look at Plan A, which is the consultant's plan, this area right here, if you look at where I circled it, I think that's the area you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
South
So-
side of 59.
Yeah,
Which is currently part of District 1.
Right, and I understand you're thinking that, use the 59 as the natural breakpoint, but then you're still going to have that problem over here where it separates into 59 across. So you're not, so it's kind of,
I'm not proposing that.
okay, but if
I'm saying basically leave 4 the way as is, so we don't have too many moving parts. Because currently 4 doesn't have that area too, right?
no, it does.
On the north side.
Oh, no, not under
Right?
the current,
That's, okay,
not what we currently have. Under
Right.
the proposed, they would have it
right.
kind of breaching 59, if you may, on 2 points.
So if I understand it right, the council, the guidance they're giving us is to try to follow the natural boundaries,
Right.
right? 59 is one of those. is one of the
I guess
guidelines that the.
I guess my
the
point is-
Council has suggested that we follow.
Yeah, and I guess my point is, if you're gonna do it there, wouldn't you want to also do it on the other side? So you don't, because to keep it consistent with what you're
Yes,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that 4 should not be on the north
Right,
side.
that's my
Right,
point. I
correct.
think we're saying the same
Exactly,
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm following you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make a point, and I understand what the gentleman is saying, but that portion that's south of 59 right now, that's been that way for a long, long time, so it hasn't been an issue. It does have a huge amount of residents due to the apartments, which makes it challenging in terms of keeping our population numbers. So it'll be interesting to see, how it works out, but that's the way it's been for many, many years.
Sherry, do you have a question?
Yes, I've made those two changes. And,
Could you speak up or have a microphone? We can't hear you. At least I can't hear you. Everybody else could.
At 3121, I moved up from District 1 to District 3, and then you requested that 3080 go
40,
from
4080, I think it is.
2 to 1,
4080.
4080.
4080.
4080.
4080 and 4121.
4080. From 2.
Well, maybe I'm.
I don't have a 4080.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry, it's 3121 is what I'm sorry. Moving from 1 to 3, and then 4080. It's hard to follow the maps, I was trying to.
Jim, there's a map coming to you.
It's
that's
3080 actually, 3080. So I can see it.
3080?
Yeah,
That one is
What were the
already-
numbers again,
That
Jim?
one has already been changed in Plan A. That is the triangle that we were talking about at our
Right.
last meeting. And it's already in 1. It was in 2, and we moved it to 1. So we are still at 1751 with those 2 changes on the map.
Jim, does that answer your question?
no, I think that if we, and I'm sorry, I think that was off 1 digit, I think it's 3080, precinct 3080, moving from 2 to 1. And
3080.
moving
Hold on one second.
3121 from 1 to 3.
Yes, sir. This map reflects that.
Okay. And what is that?
The issue is that in moving 3121, that change right there, that caused an imbalance between District 1 and District 3. So those are the 2 districts we need to make an adjustment to.
Okay, how much of an imbalance?
It looks like about 2,400 people, at least 2,000.
Okay.
So what needs to happen is one needs to pick up something, and preferably from District 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when you make these changes on this, it's the map we're looking at right here, correct? And is the population updated when you make those changes?
Yes, ma'am.
And you see it there, down at the bottom.
Right, will we see it here?
So saying that our screen here.
And the deviation is up at the top right.
It's on your computer, too.
See, here's the deviation,
Oh, so that really,
and there's the district demographics.
And what is the deviation number we've got to be at amongst the 4?
10.
Pardon?
The deviation number that we have to manage,
Is under 10.
under 10, okay. He's got the microphone here.
Yeah. No, but I think I'm okay. You can keep that one, Sherry.
So excuse me, but the changes that you're making, basically we're starting from the starting point of no changes at all, and then making these 2 changes that I'm suggesting.
No.
My apologies. We are on Plan A. Would you like us to start back at
Right.
the initial assessment, the map that is currently out of balance that is on the ground now?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible so
Okay,
that,
can you give me just a moment and let me switch these two maps out? And
Okay.
I will bring up what we call the benchmark plan, which is.
And those maps will be on our computer screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bridget, when you were my council member, what district were you? 2. Okay, and now I vote in District 3. I voted in each one of the districts since I've lived in Sugar Creek. So, yeah, so I think the districts that change, again, it's up to the council persons to be involved in the election. It doesn't affect the residents, okay? It affects them to get out and get people to vote and get more people to vote. We do need to do that anyway. But again, I like the practice on this, but the key is the quality of the 4 districts is our main goal.
That is correct. And in terms of the, your first proposed
Pardon?
Your first proposed map that
Yes.
you came up with, I mean, to me, that's a really good map, other than we're splitting River Park.
Sure.
You know, so that's, but I can see why it's very difficult and you have to work around that.
I'd like to make a comment. I agree, y'all did a great job, and I looked over this, but also, I would like to have this information.
It is on your computer.
Yes, but has a printout for me, so I can take it home and study.
Yeah, we can,
The bottom line.
in fact,
I know it's in the computer, but I can't take it home.
Whatever the draft that you
Okay.
end this meeting with, that's what will be emailed to you later this week. I don't want to send you 10 or 15 different deviations as you go through the
No, I
meeting.
just want that one.
I will
part.
be
It will be done.
confused. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. That's all I request.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, can I ask perhaps legal a question?
Go ahead.
Just for the group's information, primarily my own. When we vote in Sugar Land now, we don't have to vote at a specific box anymore, is that correct?
Correct. We have
Okay.
countywide.
So in terms of neighborhoods, precincts, et cetera, we're not as closely defined there. They can go vote at any
Yes,
box
ma'am.
in the
Fort Bend
city.
is countywide voting. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
and by the way, when people were talking, I think Ms. Young said our plan that we had done was very good and so forth, but, you know, we're not here to push our plan, because it's your plan. You know, we're just doing something that we thought was a good starting point, but y'all are the ones that ultimately make the decision.
Can I?
So we don't have any pride of authorship or anything like that.
And I understand that completely.
Yeah, my comments were similar to, I think, Ms. Chang and Ms. Young's, that I think the proposed A plan that the consultants put together was something that I felt very good about going in. My concern that is still something I think we should think through a little bit is that River Park breakup, because I don't know pragmatically, you know, I don't know if we've had a neighborhood or subdivision that has had multiple areas that, okay, well, your council member is A and your council member is B. Is that going to cause major confusion? And second, from a voting perspective, from a representation perspective, I didn't know if there's any alternatives that where we don't need to essentially divide that up.
Sherry, is there a way not, you know, probably, my thought is, and obviously we have to go through and look at it and see, which we can do here today, but my thought is that you can put that subdivision together, but you're probably going to have to split some other subdivision somewhere.
Yeah, and Bridget, you and Mary may know better than me, but I'm not aware of any subdivisions that have 2 council members that represent a subdivision.
Well, I'd like to just comment on that. Hamish, I think that's a very good point, and I don't either. However, if you look at this map, the way they have it on Plan A,
Yeah.
if we were to move Area 2 back into that district, District 2, it's going to create a huge population increase, because it's either split new territory or split River Park, because if we have the Or, you know, you take totally River Park out and move it to 4 and shift everything else. That's the only way that you can really do it, because if we leave it this way, we're either splitting River Park or we're splitting the territory. Because the population, we already have a population problem in District 2. So we would have to literally move, if we didn't want to divide a subdivision, we'd have to take all of River Park, shift it to 4, and shift things around.
Right, that's exactly correct, in that, you know, sometimes, and what we did in Plan A, move some people this way and some that way, and it balances out. But if you throw it out of balance and you don't want to do that kind of a swap, your alternative is either to go clockwise or counterclockwise, in which case you end up displacing a lot more people, or moving a lot more people. That's something, if y'all want to do, that's fine, but that is an impact, that is an effect of that.
I agree with Bridget. River Park section is one of our newer section, and it's easier to move when they're new, not like moving Sugar Creek. And
No
I
offense,
think
Harvey.
You calling us old?
they're newer
Seasoned.
Subdivision, and they're very close to Greatwood in everything, you know, and I think it's a good fit if we move that particular area, because I think the newness of it, because Sugar Land is pretty built up, as you notice. So I think if they're the newbies, us oldies could stay where we are. But I think, in my opinion, I think it will be no problem.
We still have to answer Jim's question, but go ahead, Chris.
Is there a way to overlay the boundaries of the subdivisions on these maps that we're seeing?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm seeing districts, I'm not seeing subdivisions. The one on my screen, anyway.
I think Sue also has a printout behind her, or in front of her.
Okay.
You want the,
Yeah, I think that was one that, on a printout, we had to do it at essentially a 3 feet by 4 feet map, because it's too hard to read otherwise.
Chris, can we go, I think we're ready for Jim, to answer Jim's question, right? Okay.
Yes, I'm ready to make the first of your 2 changes.
Okay.
What I have
Speak up a little bit
highlighted on
closer to the
map
mic.
now is precinct 3121.
Louder.
Louder. 3121?
Yes, okay, perfect.
Okay.
It scares me
and,
too.
It's highlighted. We're going to move that from District 1 to District 3.
Correct.
That'll be the first move now. Okay, now we're going to take 3080, which we've been calling the triangle, and we're going to move that from District 2 to District 1. Those are 2 changes on the benchmark districts. This is the
Okay.
original map that's currently on the ground now.
And then the outcome in terms of the planned deviation, it's 15, so we're still off
Right.
in that regard.
And that's the original map.
Yes, sir.
So what it is with, if we had not done any redistricting, it's 15 and a half.
Can you go ahead, while you're doing this, make that River Park move River Park into River Park only? That one change?
Like over
Isn't that to make River Park one subdivision of one council person? Yes,
I'd like to follow up on that. I think what we probably need to look at is moving all of River Park to District 4 and rotating counterclockwise. Because then we have to at least do our due diligence that there's a way we can do this without splitting a total subdivision.
You're suggesting to run the numbers to see if it
Yeah,
works?
I mean, I really think for due diligence.
I think let's do that. Let's run District 4, including all of River Park.
Okay, is
Okay,
that,
then we'll come back to Jim's point too, okay?
yes, this 4163 and 4164 are the two precincts that we're going to move into District 4. Is that correct?
Well, then obviously, we're gonna have to shift, like I said, counterclockwise to make it all work. If we put all of River Park in District 4, then it's gonna be out of balance, so we have to shift. And we have to keep in mind where Council Member McCutcheon lives, so we can't move her out of her district.
Right.
Did you get that? Yes, okay, just making sure.
So my question is from the council did give us a guideline, he tried to use major boundaries as one of the defining points, right? As part of the criteria that we're supposed to be using?
I'm sorry.
The directive that we've received from council
Right.
was that we should honor major boundaries as much as we possibly can, right?
Right.
So I think we just have to make sure we follow that accordingly, because that is a directive. Otherwise, we're not following what the council told us to do, right?
That's right. I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, we try to do to the extent possible, and that is one of your charges. Now, all these charges sometimes, for example, doing it and end up with equally populated districts that may conflict.
I mean, it may present us with more challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to
Mr. Chair.
Anyway,
then make a decision.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Chris.
If I'm clear, the natural boundaries concept is one of several, correct?
That
So
is correct.
It is one consideration, but
Right.
perhaps, I would think that perhaps the more important consideration is the levity of the numbers, as opposed to keeping those nice straight lines in line with our natural.
Absolutely, the most
Okay.
important one is equal population, within the 10% deviation, because that's a legal requirement.
I wanted to be sure I was clear on what the priorities were.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you've made that change, haven't you? Which shows a dramatic change in District 4 that would be significant. If you're looking at your computer,
So is that the change you were talking about?
that's Jim's changes and 4. So it shows that District 4 has 33,000 in population.
Mr. Chair, but what I requested is we do a counterclockwise shift, which we haven't done. We've only moved River Park into 4, so then we'd have to continue shifting to equal out the population and then see how that works out.
Can you do that for us?
She wants to, as I understand, shift population from
Counterclockwise
4 into 1 and 2
or 3.
To see if we can balance it out.
And,
What it would have.
and trying to keep with the boundary situation that Jim has brought up.
Yes, so the first, let me ask you about two precincts to try to move. We're going to rotate, like what you said, we're going to rotate this population around. 4 is heavy, it's 19.5%. It's got probably 5,000
Right,
people.
so we'd
we
have
need-
to shift some of 4
Do
to
you-
3 and
Yes, do you
and so on.
mind precinct 3079 and 3084? Those two precincts, do you want to try to move those into 3 to start rotating?
Yeah, we have to start rotating to see where it works out.
You know, I think it's a little bit, sorry, Mr. Chair, like robbing Peter to pay Paul. You know, we have some fixed sizes in some of these districts with the natural boundaries as well. And it's going to be pretty evident soon, I think, that we're not going to be able to get by without breaking up some neighborhoods, whether it's going to end up being Commonwealth or River Park or Sweetwater. But I think it's important to look at it and see
Right.
how the numbers could work, and that when we get into moving 4, do we know where Ms. McCutcheon resides?
Yeah. So, and I agree with you. I just think that if people come back later and say, why did
Absolutely.
you divide up River Park? We can at least say, well, we tried every which way we could not to, but there was no way
Totally agree.
around it.
Totally agree.
I think we have, I think you have the answer first.
Yes.
You have an
this-
answer?
These two precincts, 3079 and 3084, went from Council District 4 to Council District 3. It only reduced our population burden by about half. District 4 is still too heavy. We would need to move additional population out of 4 into another council district. Is there a preferred location for that next change?
So what we're seeing is it's going to be really very impossible to do that. We have to keep River Park separate.
right.
I don't see
Okay.
another way.
Yeah.
I mentioned
have
it, got a
question,
point.
And just, and this is a point of clarification. Bridget probably knows River Park better than anyone up here because she represented them for a long time. Isn't River Park, from my recollection, doesn't it have a demarcation of River Park North and River Park South? Isn't there two?
It's the park, the Grand Parkway.
Right, so
Goes
I
through
guess, I guess my question is, if we're breaking it up that way, where you have River Park North and River Park South,
East
one
and west.
east and west, where one would be part of one district, the other part of another district, that would, in my opinion, probably mitigate the confusion, right? Because then you can say, okay, if you live in River Park North, you're in district, it's easier to demarc, right?
I think so. I mean, I don't see a way around it.
Yeah, I
Personally.
agree.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I thought Plan A was a very good plan. But I think then we need to make sure it's on the record that we did try, and it's very difficult to accomplish.
Agree.
Yeah, what you're probably talking about doing is moving, if you're moving around the city, you're probably moving about 4,500, 5,000 people out of 4 into 2, and then moving about half of those from 2.
Well, you
into
meant
1.
into 3 and then 3 to,
Pardon?
3 to 1. You meant going into 3 and then 3 to 1 is how it'd have to work. Because we're
Yeah,
very
I mean,
lopsided on the north
You
side.
could go into, trying to look where 3, yeah, you could move from 4 into 3. And then you've got to.
Yeah, it
you could
really
do it-
is very
essentially
difficult.
You're doing the same thing the
Yeah,
other direction.
you're going to break up some neighborhoods
Yeah.
probably.
But Jim's proposal at the beginning makes us closer than ever before. If you put River Park back where it was and make Jim's changes, we're only 2,500, I think, population difference that we have to move.
So would you like me to back up
Let's take River Park back to where it was
and
and use Jim's,
unload 3079 and 3084 back into 4, just back up twice?
yes, and see what
Got
the difference is.
Here we are.
So the significant difference now is still District 1 is short population.
That's correct.
Okay. Did everybody see that on the bottom there? So we're within, when you're saying the target range has to be within 10%, is that right?
You need to get within 10%.
Okay.
Apologize, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I think what was originally requested is 3080 be moved to District 2, and that might, no, because District 2 is already too populated. So that was,
Jim, what was your,
We
the
could,
changes?
if we move, 2 is heavy in this one.
2 to 1, moving,
Move 2 to 1.
which we have. That's done. And then we have,
3121, that went from District 1 to District 3. Those are the only two changes on the benchmark map.
so if we move 3121 back, I didn't see, because there are not these numbers on these maps, so could you just move that back just so we could see the population?
The 30, which one?
3121, can you move that back to 1, just so we can look at the population?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Good point.
And once again, that's always been separated since, for many, many years.
But just because it's been that way in the past doesn't mean that we can't change it. Is that, am I?
It doesn't mean that you can't change it. The problem we've always had is that population due to the apartments that are in that 3121.
Right.
So it makes it really difficult to work with it because of the population.
Okay, I'm just thinking that in terms of, if they're part of District 1, it's confusing, I think, geographically where it's located, where they're surrounded by District 3 people. From a,
So that helps some, but it still doesn't alleviate our problem.
well, it helps, but I'm just, while we're cleaning it up, I just thought that might be,
Plan
Following
A as presented
Yes.
passes the test.
yes.
Mr. Chair, can we see, just quickly, Plan A, just see, so we can see the variation on Plan A without the change?
Go back to
So
Plan
Plan
A
A
as
As
you
it was,
presented it
without
at the
the-
very beginning.
Okay, the
So,
deviation's
the
like
deviations.
6.5, I think.
The very first presentation without any changes.
Let's see.
I think Mary and Hamesh said you're okay with that plan as presented.
Yeah, I am.
Clarify that. Are you talking about Plan A?
Plan
Okay, thank you.
6.76 is the deviation on A.
And the deviation, I'm sorry, I tried to write it down, but it went too fast. The deviation on A with the two changes of 3080 and 3121, what was the deviation on that?
You have the deviation for A with those two changes?
No, this is Plan A, and you're gonna make the two changes to those two precincts again. 3121 and 3080.
Mr. Chair, I'm just asking this question to try to get it which satisfies closest on the
Absolutely.
numbers.
Yeah, and get it
And
on
compare the two.
Absolutely.
If it's this one, the A revised that we're asked to do last time,
No, I
No, no.
believe it's
Okay.
what Jim asked for is
What
moving.
Jim asked for, we didn't get, no one wrote down the deviation number. And that's what we need.
So move 3080 from 2 to 1, 3121 from 1 to 3, and get that deviation.
This is, what's on the screen now is Plan A with Jim's two changes.
Didn't hear a word you said. You're going to have to scream at me.
I think you have to
Okay,
keep the
this is
mic
Plan
on.
A with the two changes that Jim requested.
Okay.
We can't see the
We can't see it.
deviations.
Can you move it on the screen here? We've got it blocked. Do I have to hit
the
this?
map layer managers
Oh.
covering some of the numbers.
yeah.
There we go, okay. This is with Jim's
It
changes.
it is on the one behind you, but that doesn't. This is 17.51. But
So,
you can also figure them by adding the largest and the smallest, which are going to be the ones that are in red.
so to clarify, Plan A was originally submitted, that was in our packet, is 6.76 deviation. Plan A with the two changes is 17.51
That is correct.
deviation. Okay, thank you.
And I hate to do this to you, making the River Park change, what was that deviation? That was significant.
That was either 18 or 25.
It's probably 25.
Okay, questions, suggestions?
Mr. Chair, I would just make one comment at this point. And I know it's apartment complex and it's a little harder to communicate, and maybe they're not paying as much attention, I don't know, but I think if we don't have to change something, we should leave them as they are, because there is a, a certain amount of education, et cetera, that goes on in letting people know their representation has changed. So 3080, I'm ambivalent about, but 3121, I just don't see a reason to move them at this point. So that's my comment. Other than that, I think the proposed changes were really well thought out, and I certainly understand the natural boundaries, but I think it's more important to get that deviation as tight as we can. I think that's the more compelling argument.
And Jim, one of the big things besides the boundaries is making sure we abide by the law that was passed, and that's our job to take to the city council. That's all, we have to do that. We have no other choice.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I can, I really respect your opinion on the need for the natural boundaries. That is important, but I think it's also important to know that we didn't change the entire current structure, and you're utilizing natural boundaries across the other, 90% of this map is using the natural freeways and highways and roads to break it up. So we are following the guidelines of the council. We're not changing or breaching any of that. We made an attempt to modify it with those two areas. Unfortunately, the numbers don't pan out. Just like in River Park, ideally, if I could have it my way, I would have wanted all of River Park. I think that is going to cause some confusion. I think it's going to take some education, but we went through the process. We did everything we can to figure out alternatives, and it's just not there. You're limited. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, right? You're limited by the pieces you have, and you're trying to put it together. So I'm very supportive of the consultant's plan.
The end result, though, is that we now have districts crossing over. Then we have more than one now in this proposal.
Yeah, you have two.
So we're moving. Yeah. So I'm just, if that's part of the, and again, I don't. This is my first time to be involved in something like this, but I would say that. But we're also trying to follow.
I don't think any of
the
us
council's
are experts
directive
on redistricting, so.
and making sure that we're doing that as well, and that we go through the proper due diligence.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're suggesting, that we've run some different scenarios and tried to move these pieces around, the populations, the precincts, et cetera, to make it work. That's the only thing I would say, is just in terms of one of their directives is to work on these natural boundaries. I mean, ditches is another one.
Right.
I mean, so, those are harder to see on these maps.
That's right.
But so that the population that's voting in these areas have some identification as to which district they're part of, and try to make it as easy for them as much as possible as to where they are geographically located. If I was part of that one, if I was one of those apartments, I would say I'm a part of 3, not one that's on the other side of 59. That's my only point.
No, and to that point, that's part of the candidate's role, is to educate all of them on who their representation is, and making sure that they understand where they're voting, and the city's job too, to educate where they're going to be now. So I think whenever this process happens, there's always a transition period, and it usually works itself out.
Well, I agree there should be education, there's no doubt.
Chris, any viewpoint?
I was going to ask if there were any lines drawn that would change kind of this east end of current District 4 to the point about trying to keep River Park together. Could 3 then shift a little bit into, could the east section of 4 shift into 3, which I think is similar to what Ms. Young was suggesting. I'm sure you guys have run those numbers at some point and drawn those lines.
So Chris, if you look here, even with the current, they're at 30,000. I don't know if this reflects that.
What map were you working off of?
No, this is not Plan A, though. I apologize.
And I may need a little clarity, because I thought I understood what those deviation numbers meant, and now I'm looking at them again, and now I'm not so sure. I'm seeing positive and negative numbers, and I'm seeing red and green, and I'm seeing combinations of both.
Okay. first, the green are going to be ones that are 5% or less. And the reason for that is with the 10% maximum, if your biggest deviation is +5, your minus, or your smallest is -5, that's 10%. So if you're under 5%, you're going to be okay. And so what the software does is it flags ones that are above or below, and if it's too much, you have a downward arrow saying you got to lose, and if it's too little, you have an upward arrow meaning you got to give it up. Now, it is possible to have a district that is more than 5, but your other districts have to be smaller. Because, for example, if one were 6% over, the smallest district would have to be less than 4% under, not less than 5. And when you add all the pluses and the minuses, they're going to come up to 0. So minus 8.8, minus 1.32, plus 8.7, plus 1.51 is 0. I wasn't able to do that in my head, but that's what it has to be.
Law of averages. I'm with you. Thank you.
Yeah. But if you add the smallest and the largest, which in this case, they're both the red ones, you come up with the same thing that's at the top right, 17.51.
Do we have any other questions? Do we want to, anybody have a motion? Or do we want to, how do you want to handle this going forward? Yes.
I would just like to confirm that what's on our screen is Plan A.
No, it's not.
No.
This is Plan A with some modifications.
That's
You
what I
should
thought,
not have
so
a
I'd like to
motion
know-
at this point in time
We
because
have no
you're
motion at all.
you cannot, I'd highly recommend against any motion at this point in time because
make a
you're not legally compliant. You're greater than 10%. So your only motion, your motion would be to adjourn for the evening, but you cannot recommend this plan to city council because it's not legally
I'm
compliant.
sorry.
I can't hear you,
either-
Mary.
Was the recommendation for Plan A?
No, I wanted to just see Plan A.
Oh, okay.
Saying this is not Plan A, it's
Yeah, this is Plan A.
This is Plan A with the modification.
Sorry.
Do we want to undo 31,
Plan A.
Undo it
21?
and give us the plan you presented us at the very beginning, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hang on.
Too much math for me.
Here we go. This is
Now we're talking.
Plan A.
This
No
is Plan
change.
A, which
Yeah.
has no changes that we discussed up on the table here.
Yes.
Now, how do we want to handle it? Do we want to have a motion?
You can take a motion.
I can't take a motion.
Meredith, what were you saying that we could do today?
I'm trying to figure out what your motion would be.
No motion.
If this is your motion to adjourn, yes, you can do that. If you're making a motion that you want to recommend this to city council, you haven't had a public hearing. Your next meeting
Oh.
is scheduled to be your public hearing, and that's the one where, based on your input from the citizens.
So we have to have another meeting, is what you're saying.
And then you don't have an action item on this agenda to make a recommendation to city council.
Mr. Chair? I'm sorry, Jim.
As a point of clarification, can we just walk through the changes for Plan A, just to make sure that we're clear on what it is? Before any changes, and then changes are included as part of Plan A,
Okay.
just to
All
help
right,
us.
there are only 3 changes in Plan A. The first change is going to be here in our, would you like the precinct numbers up? Does that make that a little bit easier?
It would help, I think, just
Okay, let me turn those on real fast here.
Advisory phone, but it's better.
Mr. Chair, while she's pulling that up, and also as a point of clarification, when we get the plan up, can the consultants or legal counsel verify that this plan meets the 3 qualifications that we've been working towards complying with? Okay, thank
Right,
you.
I mean, we can say it reasonably meets them, because
Very good.
some of it is,
Little
they're going to be
interpretation.
there's going to be a split subdivision. We know that.
But that doesn't affect legally.
The three
Pardon?
That
legal,
doesn't affect the legal threshold if it's
No,
subdivision.
that's right.
Yeah.
And as a legal matter, we know that whatever plan you adopt, 99 times out of 100 is not going to meet every criteria. Because, you know, keeping the subdivision together may conflict with having a plan that's in balance. By the way, talking about subdivisions is just a personal thing on my congressional district. Back in the prior redistricting, before they redistricted this time, my neighbor 2 blocks away was in a district that extended from Austin all the way to Katy. And I was in a district that extended from Austin to Fort Worth.
Oh, wow.
And we were 150 feet difference between us. Now, both of us are in a district that's basically in Austin because the legislature changed. But
Okay.
Okay, the first change that we made in Plan A is precinct 3080 that we've often referred to as the triangle. That area moved from District 2 to District 1. The second change is down in River Park, is precinct 4164, and it moved from precinct 2, or Council District 2, to Council District 4. That's change number 2. The third and final change is precinct 3079 and 3084, moving from Council District 4 to Council District 3. Those are the 3 changes from the benchmark plan that comprise the Plan A at a deviation of 6.76%.
There's also no issue as to where the council members reside that represent these areas.
yeah, they are
Are we okay there?
little
I mean,
red
I don't know where they are, so I,
or squares.
Would you like me to make it bigger?
We
Bigger?
did verify that each one of the district
they're all
members
in their
are living in
original
their,
district.
Those are the red dots. That represents each single member.
okay, that's what that represents, because I couldn't see it on the legend anywhere. Okay.
There you go.
C4 is right here.
Right in here.
And let me move the map down a little bit so you can see everybody. There we go. This is the council member in District 1, right here. This is the council member in District 3, over here. Here's the council member in District 4, down here. And here's the council member in District 2, over here. Everybody's in their correct district.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
we've been talking a lot about big numbers, right? Total population in each district. Where do demographics come into play in these considerations?
All right, demographics
I see the numbers, but how do we consider them?
important in regard to whether it's a violation of the Voting Rights Act. Now, to prove a violation of the Voting Rights Act, a minority group would have to show that it's sufficiently large and geographically compact to be able to constitute a majority in a single-member district. Generally in Texas, that's going to be African American or Hispanic. That's not the case here in Sugar Land. Where you do have a larger group is the Asian heritage group. And in that case, you see here in this plan, which is A, that it's sort of the voting age population sort of off to the side, but it's 54 point something % of voting age population. It's 54.46 of total population. Would generally look at voting age population, but and we had looked at CVAP, didn't we, on this one? And it was over 50%.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
correct.
You know, technically, we're looking also at citizen voting age population, which we abbreviate as CVAP, and that was over 50% Asian population. And that's important because those are people who are potentially eligible to register and vote. And so we would like to have that majority district, and we have that in two. And my thought was that most districts you draw are going to be like that. And let's see. It's, you know, if you look at the total population, Asian voting age population, there we go, it's a little under a third. So it would be hard to argue that there have to be two Asian majority districts. If you could draw those, that's fine. But we're probably not legally compelled to do that.
Are these demographic, how different are these demographics from the current district demographics?
Well,
are we creating a big difference in terms of the demographics?
Hold on a minute. If you go to the initial assessment, and I'll have to pull that out. I think I have a copy of it here. Yeah.
I see what you're looking at. This is helpful. So the current one is...
What page are you on, please?
This is, well, it says page
Voting,
1.
yeah, you got that. It's almost the same.
It's very similar. It looks to me like it's very similar. So I'm looking at, to make that distinction, I'm looking at attachment A from last time.
Right.
And
voting age, probably easier to see it on the summary map simply because there's so many. But either one is the same number. I mean, it's just that the other is broken down. But see, the Asian in District 2 is 53.63 versus 53.72. So.
Okay, so we're keeping that pretty in line with the
Right.
population. Okay, thank you.
And the others were about a third in each one, and that's exactly,
Okay,
I mean, not exactly, but roughly a third in each one.
thank you.
And that's one reason that last time I said, you know, we don't need to focus too much on that as we're drawing around, because probably any map that you draw is going to come out that way. Now, if we had cut into that heavily Asian population in District 2, we might have a problem. But Asian population is largely dispersed. You see 33% everywhere, except in 2, and you're probably going to keep 2 together anyway. So, it's, I remember the first time we represented Sugar Land, the largest minority group, and this was unique among everybody that we represent, was Asian, much smaller than it is now, but there was probably 2 or 3 blocks in the entire city that were more than 20% Asian. So it was very dispersed. You couldn't draw an Asian majority district because 80% of virtually every block was non-Asian.
Okay, are we ready to take it to the next meeting, so we have public comment? How about that? Did I do it right?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the calendar, and I had forgotten that you submit this to City Council on August 15th, and then there's a workshop after, so you can vote to send this plan submit to City Council, and they will have a public hearing there if you're in consensus that this is your plan tonight.
Now, if you'll say that when you put the microphone a little bit closer to your mouth so we can hear you,
can't hear you.
would be wonderful.
Okay.
'Cause- Thank you.
All right, so
Yeah,
I'm
we
looking
can
at
hear you
this redistricting schedule, and this plan, whatever plan this board recommends, must be submitted to City Council on August 15th, and then the city council will have a workshop on August 22nd and a public hearing on September 5th. So if you were to make a recommendation tonight as an advisory board to submit this plan, city council can go ahead and have the public hearing and the workshop. Or we can come back on August 3rd and you can work on your jigsaw puzzle some more.
How do we agree to go?
So, Mr. Chair, I think maybe we should ask each person
Sure, okay.
what they prefer, what plan.
I'm sorry, can I ask for clarity one more time on that? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time
Bad microphone.
I'm going to use the microphone I'm used to using. So you can, as an advisory board, you can make a recommendation this evening that this, as to the plan that you would like submitted to city council. That must be submitted by August, and I've already lost it.
15th.
August 15th. That is the same date that citizens must also submit their plans. City council will then have a workshop on August 22nd discussing the plans, and a public hearing will be posted for September 5th.
Do we agree with all those dates? Do we have any objections? How's that? What time?
Those dates were passed in the resolution that city council passed when they appointed this board, as well as the criteria. So those dates are fixed in stone.
I just asked what time do we need to be here?
Most city council meetings start at 5:30. I will let you know if for some reason we start at 5.
We have no objection to that, so we're going to go forward with the recommendation. Do we have to vote on it?
If this is your board's recommendation, I would like to be able to tell the council your vote as far as who's recommending this plan, who is not, if it's unanimous.
We don't need a
or not.
motion, but there's a recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a recommendation to go forward. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any negatives? No
Can I
negatives.
get a first and a second?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry,
have
the
a
city
second.
secretary would prefer a
I
motion.
I don't think he's making a motion, he's just taking a recommendation.
I don't know what, I'm not.
So
I
how
can't
does it
say
need to be
motion.
presented to
How
the
about,
count?
do we need to make a motion that we recommend Plan A as outlined to the city
If you
council?
would like to do that, you can do that as well as an advisory board. It's up to you.
So motion.
Yes. Whatever we did.
And we need a
is
second.
correct. How's that?
Raise your hand.
We're ready to go forward.
Okay. All in favor of moving forward, raise your right hand.
Oh, I'm left-handed.
So it's
I would-
unanimous, or your left hand. So it's a unanimous recommendation of this
Yes, ma'am.
board to move forward with Plan A as presented by the consultants.
Correct.
Can I just make one quick comment?
We have a comment.
Just a real quick comment. Just want to thank the consultants. You guys did a real great job on helping put this together.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I was appreciating your efforts. Thank you for
Okay, thank you.
making our job a whole lot easier, because you came up with a good plan that really didn't need much modification. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. Second that motion.
Make a motion to adjourn. Okay, let's do it.
Let's go.
Good job, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Connie, when you came in, let me turn
Yes, sir.
this off.